Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today it's time for a quick tip, and I thought I would give some tips on casting better ingots when you're recycling your scrap. So let's get started. So this is one of my design idea sketchbooks that are available on my store. You can get different models with different metalsmithing information on the back. Some have conversion charts. This one has flow temperatures of various types of solder. The real feature for me, though, is the dot matrix in the background. That helps me to draw better pictures because I'm not super good at drawing. But it's nice to be able to have a record of all of the stuff I've made. And I started doing this when I started the YouTube channel, and I'm really glad I did because it's a nice way to have a record so you can go back and check things out again without reinventing the wheel each time. Alright, so today I'm going to talk a little bit about casting ingots. With the price of silver right now, a lot of people I think are thinking about recycling some of their scrap rather than paying premium prices for prefabricated materials. And I did do a video a while back about casting ingots, so if you're interested in that, I'll put a link up there for it. I left out a few details on that one, and so I wanted to make sure to include them in this thing as an accessory video for that one, a bonus video for that one. Either way, there's a few things I should have mentioned that I didn't mention, so I want to talk about that today. So if you're going to be casting stuff, you'll need a ingot mold. I use this one, which has, you can do it this way to get slab kind of ingots, or you can do it this way and get cylindrical kind of ingots to roll into wire, and you just clamp it the same way this way. So the other thing you need is a crucible on a handle of some sort, so you can dump your metal in there. But a couple of things to keep in mind when you're doing ingots, and one of the things that helps a lot in getting a better outcome is using really clean scrap. So if you can find scrap that mostly doesn't have a lot of solder on it, that works the best. Having lots of solder in it will make it a little bit harder when you get the final casting and harder to roll out. It may reduce the content of silver below 92.5% silver, which makes it not sterling silver anymore. I usually offset that by throwing in some scrap bezel that I have laying around, little bits of scrap bezel, to raise the silver content a little bit so it tests out a little higher than 0.925. So you can do that as well, but no, little or no solder in there helps a lot too, and not a lot of other debris is nice as well. A second thing to do, and I learned this late in the game, spraying some oil in your mold prior to doing it kind of conditions the mold and allows you to get a better casting. And I usually use 3-in-1 oil or WD-40. I'm curious if anybody's ever tried using like vegetable oil. I bet that would work too, but if anybody's ever tried that, let me know. I think that might be less stinky when you're heating up your mold. But another method that people use to prepare the mold that a lot of people recommend, I've not tried this because I don't have an oxyacetylene torch, but you can turn an oxyacetylene torch on so you're burning almost just acetylene without any oxygen being pumped in, and it's really smoky flame, and you can use that smoke to kind of get soot all over the inside of your mold, and that works the same way as oil apparently. So it's worth trying that if you got that set up. When you're melting your silver in preparation for pouring it in the mold, if you sprinkle a little bit of borax in there, just a pinch of borax in the metal melt, it cleans up the metal quite a bit and causes a lot of the impurities and stuff to move to the edges so you can scrape them out pretty easily. And you get a better mix of metal, I think. So that works as well. That's another good tip. Something I have found, and this has to do with the temperature of the mold mostly, because ideally you want to get the temperature of the mold up to 400 or more degrees Fahrenheit, so that when the metal hits the mold as it's being poured in, it doesn't immediately turn into a solid and block the passageway, because it resolidifies very quickly when you pour it into the mold. So having a hot mold at 400 plus degrees is a great way to do that. If you have a kiln, that's great. You can heat it up in advance in a kiln. If not, while you're melting your silver, you want to periodically visit that mold with a torch tip so you can get it hot. The other thing about that is when you do get your silver all into a molten state, and you've stirred it up and it's liquid, heat it up a little bit more beyond that. You can get it hotter than just barely to the melting point. When you pour it in, it's more likely to stay a liquid until it fills up the mold. So I would try to do that. So even though it's all melted, heat it up a little bit more for another minute or two before you dump it in. One thing when I've showed people in person how to do this, they forget to do is to keep the torch pointed at the liquid metal while you're pouring it into the mold. And that's hard to do because you're using two hands. There's a torch in one hand and there's a mold in the other, and you got to keep track of both of them in your mind. So if you have a friend who can help you keep the torch pointed at the metal while you're pouring, that helps too. That's nice. But if you take the heat away, it almost immediately starts to cool off into a semi-solid, and then it won't pour very well. You want to keep the heat on the metal as it's pouring so it stays as hot as possible. Finally, don't pull the mold open until you're sure that it's a solid again, and then you can take it out of the mold and let it cool on its own. So those are just a few things that I've found that help to get a really good casting. I'm curious to hear what your tricks are as well. So if you have some tricks for casting nice ingots, I'd love to know, because I'm always willing to learn new things. And hopefully this helps you. If you have some suggestions or other ideas, leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear. Well, that was just a few tips for getting a better result when you cast your scrap into usable ingots. And I hope you found that useful. If you did, I'd love it if you'd hit the like button before you go. And I'd really appreciate it if you'd visit my main channel page and check out some of my other videos. I have 630 plus now. I do 3 per week, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday, and one on Saturday. So there's a constant stream of good content coming out here. And it might be worth subscribing to my channel. It doesn't cost anything. And there's lots of useful information here, especially if you're a beginner. But there's certainly some information for more experienced people as well. So check it out, subscribe to my channel. I wanted to thank some groups of people. First, my patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. I could not do this without their financial help. But not only that, they've created a really nice community on that platform, and I really do appreciate that. We share ideas, we share our projects with each other, resources. It's a really nice place with a lot of cool people who are pretty talented. So thanks for making it that way, patrons. You are awesome, and I appreciate you. My other group are my YouTube subscribers, and we have 28,400 about now. That's amazing. I never in my wildest dreams imagined I'd have that many subscribers to my channel, so thank you for that. Thanks also for the really nice comments. I appreciate the suggestions for videos, constructive criticism. Telling me how you do things is always interesting for me. And I love it when people tell their personal stories. That's really nice and touching sometimes, so thanks for that. Thank you also for the financial contributions, the buy me coffees, super thanks, buying my items on my shop, and my ebooks, which I do every year, a guide to all of the different videos I did in the previous year. So your purchases and your contributions like that make my channel sustainable, so thank you for that. Visit the video description down below for some important links. There's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about that nice community. There's a link to my shop if you want to get yourself a nice design idea sketchbook or some other merch. And there's a link to my newest ebook, which is a guide to 2025's tutorials. There's a page for each of the tutorials I did in 2025. There's a link from the page to the video itself. There's information including a picture of the sketch that I drew prior to the project, a final outcome picture, a list of materials it takes to make the project, stone information if it has a stone. It has a difficulty rating, and it has some notes I took about the project, things I might have learned from it, or whether I like the outcome or not, and why, what I would change if I was to do it again. It's a nice way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, and a really nice way to support my channel, so get yourself one. There's actually one for the past 3 years. You can get all 3 of them as a package for a discount of $15 off, so you might want to check out that option as well. Alright, well thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.